Unit 13. Religion. In centuries past, the very language of most British people was enriched by the knowledge of the Bible and the English Book of Common Prayer. In the 21st century, the vast majority of people in Britain don't regularly attend religious services. Many do so only a few times in their lives. Surveys suggest more than half the population have no meaningful connection with any recognizable organized religion. Even when they are getting married, two-thirds prefer civil ceremony to religious ones. In centuries past, British Christian missionaries energetically spread the word of God around the world. This day, Christian missionaries from Africa and South America are flocking to Britain to save British souls, but they will have a difficult job. According to one survey in 2006, 80% think that religion does more harm than good. It is for reasons such as this that Britain is now often described as a secular country, and there is no doubt that most people in Britain can't strictly be described as religious. However, this doesn't mean that they have no religious belief or inclination. Between 40 and 60% profess a belief in God. Perhaps this approach explains why few people object to the fact that the Queen is queen by the grace of God, or the fact that she, like all previous British monarchs, was crowned by the religious feature in a chart, and that the British nation attend, protecting her. Our picture with respect to religion in Britain is rather similar to that toward the monarchy, such as there is no serious republican movement in the country, so there is no whispered anti-clericalism, and such as is no socialist movement either. So most people are not active participants in organized religions. Politics, freedom of religion, belief and worship is taken for granted in modern Britain, so it's freedom to be a non-believer, professing disbelief in God or any religion is not regarded as taboo. The religious conflict of the past and the closest relationship with politics have left only a few traces in modern time. Despite the separation of religion and politics, it is retained that we can find two of the few remaining cases in Europe of establishment churches. That is, churches we are, by law, the official religion of a country. These cases are the Church of Scotland and the Church of England. The monarch is the official head of both, and the religious leader on the latter. The Archbishop of Canterbury is appointed by the government. Anglicanism. Although the Anglican Church apparently has much the largest following in England, and a large minority of adherents in the other nations of Britain, appearance can be deceptive. Less than a tenth of those who might describe themselves as Anglican regularly attend service. Many others are Christian, married and buried in Anglican ceremony, but others hardly ever go to church. Regular attendance for many Anglicans is traditionally as much a social as religious activity. The Church of England came into being more for patriotic and political reasons than doctrinal ones. As a result, it has always been a world church, willing to accommodate a wide variety of belief and practice. The nature of its religious service varied quite widely from church to church, dependent on the inclination of the local priest and the local tradition. One strand is evangelical or low church. This place great emphasis on the content of the Bible and in the most consciously opposite to Catholicism. It prefers plain service with a minimum of ceremony. High church services are more colorful and include organ music and elaborate priestly clothing. But there is also liberal wing which is willing to question some of the traditional Christian belief. It's more inclined to be a Bible and is more a historical document in more tolerant toward homosexuality and was referred to support wives to ordain women priests. It is also more overly concerned with the social justice. Conflicts between the three strands sometimes surfaces. Catholicism. After the establishment of Protestantism in Britain, Catholicism was a for-time an illegal religion and then very tolerant one. Only in the last 100 years has this been as open about these activities as any other religion. A large proportion of Catholics in modern Britain are those whose family roots are from Italy, Ireland, Poland, or elsewhere in Europe. The Irish connection is evident in the large proportion of priests in England who come from Ireland. Catholicism in Britain thus has a historical marginal status. This is one reason why it has a greater cohesive and uniformity than the Anglican. In 1992, Dr. George Carey, the Archbishop of Canterbury at the time, rose to announce a moment decision. Anglicans had voted to allow the ordination of women priests. About 18 months after that, the first women priests were ordained. Those who supported this development believed that it would help to give the Church of England a greater relevance to the modern world and finally bring it up to date. If it decides to go to a ballroom that is from the Catholic Church, which does not have women priests. Other conventional Christian churches. In many ways, Anglicanism represents a compromise between Protestantism and Catholicism. It is the doctrine which rejects the authority of the Pope, and the other important aspect of Catholic doctrine is Protestant. When Protestantism first took root in Britain, there were many people who reject not only Catholic doctrine but also Romish styles. These people didn't join the newly established Anglican Church. Instead, they placed great importance on finding the truth of oneself in the word of the Bible and on living an austere life of hard work and self-sacrifice. This is the origin of the Puritan Calvinist tradition in Britain. The first church within this tradition was the Presbyterian Church. In Scotland, this follows Protestantism was so strong that it became this nation's establishment church. In England, those Protestants who didn't accept the authority of the Anglican Church were first known as dissenters and later. This date, when refusal to conform to the establishment church is relevant, they are simply called to members of the free churches, a great many different free church groups have come into being over the century. However, they all share in varying degree certain characteristics. They regarded simplicity and individual prayer as more important than elaborate ritual and public ceremony. After Presbyterian, the largest traditional non-conformist group in Britain is the Methodist Society. Methodists follow the teaching of John Wesley, an 18th century preacher who started his career as an Anglican clergyman. He had little doctrinal disagreement with the establishment church. However, he and his followers considered that it didn't care enough about the needs of ordinary people and that the anarchy was not serious enough about the Christian messages. The Salvation Army grew out of the Wesleyan movement. And the other nonconformist groups with a long history are the Baptists and the Quaker. The former are comparatively strict both in the interpretation of the Bible and their dislike of worldly pleasure. The latter, also known as a Society of Friends, are a very small group whose notable characteristic and their complete lack of clergy and their pacifism. They refuse to fight in any war, so they will do ambulance and hospital work. In the last 2 centuries, influence of the Calvinist tradition has been felt in Lower Latin to Sundays. Traditionally, many British people regard it as a very strange that in so many continental countries, large sporting events and other professional activity took place on a Sunday. However, the hours of opening are still restricted in small ways. Other religions, churches, and religious movements. Since it is a multicultural country where the pressure to conform is comparatively weak, Britain is home following almost every religion and sect under the sun. Then, by way of conclusion, we can say religion is usually defined as a cultural system of certain behavior and practices, worldviews, ethnics, texts, sacred places, prophecies, or organizations that relate humanity to supernatural, transcendental, or spiritual elements. Many religions have narrative symbols and sacred stories that claim to explain the meaning of life or explain the origin of life of the universe. From their belief about the cosmos and human nature, people can get even more ethical or religious law or lifestyle. The official religion is Christianity, the head of which is the monarch of the United Kingdom. The Protestant is the Nation Church of Scotland. The Baptist, Adventist, or Quaesme are also professes, as well as the Catholicism, which is the second most important, Islam and Judaism forming the largest group. There is a freedom of worship. Although constituent countries, such as the region of Northern Ireland and Wales, declared themselves confessional or secular state, from the Anglican and Orthodox Church was proclaimed. Although religion in the United Kingdom is a personal right and there is the free exercise of worship, the Anglican Church is legally recognized as the official state religion. The majority of the population is of the Christian religion, about 71%, and is made up mainly of members of the Roman Catholic Church and the Anglican Church. In turn, religion in the United Kingdom also includes cults such as Buddhism, Hinduism, Judaism, Islam, and Sikhism. About 23% of the population doesn't practice any religion. Also, an important religion in the United Kingdom is Islam, since there is one of the largest Muslim communities in Europe there. For each part, in Scotland, there are more than 2 million members of the Protestant Church, recognized as the official Church of Scotland, and in Northern Ireland, the majority of the population is divided into Catholic and Protestant. In Wales, on the other hand, there is no official establishment church since the overthrow of the Anglican Church in 1920, but the most popular are the Methodic and Baptist. The most important is to respect for what the other believe or not.